What's up guys, today I have another Archetype build that really destroys a lot of PvE content in the game and also just jolts literally everything. If you guys enjoy this video and want to see more content from me, make sure to go check out my other videos on my channel. I love making these fun builds for you guys and I really hope you guys are enjoying them as well. Also, thank you so much for the support lately. We just hit that 320 mark for subscribers on my channel. I'm so grateful for all of you. But alright, enough rambling around, let's get into today's build. Today's build revolves over the point contact cannon brace, which is an exotic gauntlets for Titan. This exotic was actually pretty good when it first came out in Season of the Plunder, but they were severely broken. And this was especially in PvP. Then they got nerfed to the ground, which made them extremely unusable for all content in the game, and basically just made them horrible. Like, literally just look at this clip. Ugh. What even is that? But since Season Deep was introduced within Lightfall, they buffed this exotic and many other armor exotics. Now this exotic is a jolting machine, and even though Jolt did get nerfed a little bit, it's still really good in my opinion. Enough of the history of this exotic, let's get into the description. Before Season Deep, what this exotic did was every time you defeated a target with your Thunderclap melee, it would restore melee energy. And also when you hit targets with your melee, your powered melee, lightning strikes around you will appear on enemies and it'll damage them a little bit. And also as an add-on, when you were amplified, your lightning strikes would have more range to them. But now in Season Deep, since it just got buffed, now it states defeating a target with your Thunderclap melee restores melee energy. This is the same as last time. Also, targets near you when you were using your Thunderclap suffer lightning strikes and become jolted. So basically what they did with this is they added Jolt to the exotic. Also, being amplified increases the damage of these lightning strikes. So basically they reworked that part, the amplified part, and instead of having more range, it now increases the damage of your lightning strikes. Also within Season Deep, they increased the base damage of the lightning strikes from 50 to 200, and that increased damage while being amplified is 50% more damage. Basically what this exotic is another way to apply Jolt onto a target and targets around you, and I really like this exotic because of that, and I'm very glad they buffed it because it really needed it. For the subclass of this build, we're going to be on the Archetype subclass Striker. For the super, we're going to be using the Thunder Crash. The super turns you into a homing missile and does good DPS and good AoE damage. You can use the Fist of Havoc super if you really want to, since it did just get a buff, but for this build, I'm going to be using Thunder Crash. For the abilities of this build, we're going to be using Thruster as our class ability. This is only 36 seconds compared to the 48 seconds, which is a normal Towering Barricade. And with this class ability, you are more agile, and we will be allowing this class ability to give us more ability energy with our mods, which we'll get into very soon. For the jump, I'm going to be using Catapult Lift. You can use any jump you really want to, though. For the melee, we're going to be using Thunderclap Melee. We're using this because our exotic is tied to this melee, and it's essential for the build to work fully. What Thunderclap does is it's range melee for our Titan that makes you stationary as you use it, and you can charge it for big damage or release it instantly for an instant melee. This melee is the butter of the build and will allow us to jolt targets and do more damage to enemies around us. For the grenade, we're going to be using the Pulse Grenade. We're using this because of the DPS factor it can provide, and also our aspect, which we'll get into very soon, will improve this grenade. You can use the Storm Grenade if you really want to, and also the aspect we're getting into very soon again will improve this grenade as well. So it's really your choice. For the aspects of this build, we're going to be using Knockout. Knockout gives us a bonus damage to our melee damage when critically wounding a target, and will also give us health regeneration when defeating a target with our melee. This will also give us amplified every time we get a kill with our melee. You can probably already see the synergy here with our exotic in this aspect. This melee buff goes to our non-charged melee and will allow us to further improve this melee and ability regen with our armor mods. Our second aspect is Touch of Thunder. This aspect buffs Flashbang Grenade, Pulse Grenade, Lightning Grenade, and Storm Grenade. With this aspect, we're going to be focusing on 2 grenades. These grenades will be Pulse Grenade and Storm Grenade. With this build, I'm going to be using the Pulse Grenade since it will be giving us ability regen with our Ionic Traces by just hitting targets, and will also do more damage over time. Like I said before, you can use the Storm Grenade if you really want to with this aspect. What it does is it turns your Storm Grenade into a roaming thundercloud and tracks nearby targets. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and use it. But this grenade with this aspect did get nerfed a while ago. But if you still enjoy using it, I'm not stopping you. For the fragments, we're going to be using Spark of Discharge. This fragment gives you a chance for an Ionic Trace by defeating targets with an arc weapon. This will give us more ability energy by just using our weapons. But if you're not using an arc weapon, you can swap this out for Spark of Discharge, Spark of Recharge, Spark of Feedback, or even Spark of Volts for more amplification from finishers. Our second fragment is Spark of Ions. This gives us Ionic Traces whenever we get a jolted kill. This does have a cooldown, but it's still a really good way to get more ability regen
from our ionic traces by getting jolted kills, which will be a lot with this build. Our third fragment would be Spark of Amplitude. This fragment gives you an orb of power from rapidly defeating targets while you're amplified. This can be from your abilities or even weapons. Since the whole armor charge system got revamped within Lightfall, and orbs are the new way to become armor charge, this is a great way to get some stacks started. With our last fragment, we have Spark of Shock. This gives the ability for your grenades to jolt targets. With this, we now have 2 abilities that will jolt targets. One from our grenade and one from our melee with our exotic. Here are the full armor mods. For the helmet for our first mod, we're going to be using Hands On. Gain bonus super energy on melee kills. We're going to be getting a lot of melee kills with this build, so this will improve our super regen. For our second mod, we're going to be using Harmonic Siphon. Rapid arc final blows have a chance to create orb of power. So use whatever siphon you really want to for whatever weapons you're going to be using. But with this build, for me, I'm going to be using arc, so I'm going to be using Harmonic Siphon. For the last and final mod with the helmet, we have Dynamo. Reduces your super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. Since we have a low cooldown on our class ability and we can use it whenever we really want to near targets, this will give us even more super energy. For a double stack in between Hands On and Dynamo will give us our super back up very fast. For the gauntlets for our first mod, we have Heavy Handed. Your powered melee final blows creates orbs of power. Again, since we're going to be getting a lot of melee kills with this build, you're going to be making orbs left and right. Also with this mod, with the knockout aspect, while knockout is procced, whenever you get a non-charged melee kill, so just punching with your normal melee when knockout is procced, first of all, you get a bonus damage to your melee damage, and also you'll get an orb of power every time you get a kill. So if you're low on your abilities, you can basically just punch your way to get your abilities back. With our second mod, we have Melee Kickstart. When your melee is fully expended, you gain melee energy. With this build, we're going to be going up to 4 charges of armor charge, so this is all going to tie into our Melee Kickstart every time we use our melee. For our last and final mod on the gauntlets, we're going to be using Impact Induction. Causing damage with a melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. We're going to be getting our grenade back very fast with this build since we're going to be using our melee most of the time. For the chest piece of this build, we're going to be using Charged Up. This allows our armor charge to go from 3 to 4 stacks, and then you can use any resist mods you really want to. For the leg armor, for our first mod, we're going to be using Elemental Charge. Collecting a Fire Sprite, Ionic Trace, Stasis Shard, or Void Breach, or destroying a Tangle has an escalating chance to give you an armor charge. With this mod, we're going to be focusing on Ionic Traces, and we're going to be making a lot of Ionic Traces for our ability regen, and also now this will tie into our armor charge. This is not every time, but it's like every other Ionic Trace. This allows you to not really worry about the orbs that you're going to be creating, and also you just can rely on your Ionic Traces if you're just killing everything with your abilities. For our second mod, we have Stacks and Stacks. Picking up Orb of Power grants you 1 additional stack of armor charge. This does work with Elemental Charge, and every time we get an Ionic Trace that will give us an armor charge, it will give us 2 stacks instead of 1. For the last and final mod of our boots, we have Invigoration. Reduces your melee cooldown each time you pick up an Orb of Power. With this build, we're going to be making tons of orbs, so you're going to be getting your melee back even faster. You could probably switch this out for Recuperation, just for more health regen, since we are on Arc, but that is completely up to you. Also, if you are a new player, you might not see this mod on your normal armor. What this mod is an Artifice Armor mod. This is for the armor, where it says right here, Artifice Armor. This gives you a +3 to any stat you really want to, and this does not go towards your energy. How to get these armor pieces is you have to do the master version of a dungeon, but I did see some people commenting about that, so that's where it's from. For the class item of this build, we're going to be using Outreach. Reduces your melee cooldown when you use your class ability. And also, I'm just going to go right into the next one. Distribution reduces all your ability cooldowns when you use your class ability and your targets. Both these will give us our melee back very fast, and also with distribution, it will go towards all our abilities. So you also gain some grenade back as well. And since our thruster is pretty fast charging, and you can use it basically instantly, it's going to help with the build and rotation and the ability regen cycle. With the last and final mod of the class item, we have Powerful Attraction. Automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability. This is another reason to not really look for all the orbs of power 100% of the time. So you can rely on your Ionic Traces for armor charge, and also you can use your class ability near the orbs and it'll pick them up. If you really want to, you could probably switch this out for Reaper if you wanted to, just for more orbs. But I just really wanted to not really worry about the orbs that we're creating, and just also pick them up whenever you really want to by using your class ability near them. Let's talk about the stats next. So with the stats, you want to focus into Resilience first, Strength next, and Discipline last. With this build for me, I have 100 Resilience, 70 Discipline, and 70 Strength. If you have better armor than I do, you can definitely bump this up even more. But I also went for 50 Recovery, just for the recovery rate increase. For the weapons this build, you can really use any weapons you really want to. Just make sure if you're not going to be using an arc weapon to take off Spark of Discharge, and replace it with one of the fragments we stated before. But some arc weapons to keep in mind with this build that you can really use, that will benefit this build greatly, is you can use the new seasonal exotic that just came out with Season Deep, called the Centrifuge. You can also use Nation of the Beast if you really want to. I really like this roll, the Dragonfly Volt Shot. but roll whatever you want to. And also with volt shot weapons, it will tie into a spark of discharge and also spark of ions, which will give us a lot of ionic traces coming to us. So if you can use volt shot, but if you really are going to use a special weapon for, like, for example, for Barons, you can definitely use that. And this will still give you ionic traces. You can also use Aikido's SMG. Those are just some weapons with a huge variety you can really use for arc weapons that are really good in this game. But choose any arc weapons you really want to use just for your playstyle. And you can use any special weapon you want. Since I have Centrifuge on, I'm going to be using the Supremacy. You can also use Riptide if you really want to, or Conditional Finality, or even Izanagi's Burden, or Waveframe Geo from the new dungeon, the new Pacific Epitaph, with any heavy you really want to. You can even use Thunderlord if you really want to. Again, make sure if you're not going to be using an arc weapon, just take off Spark of Discharge and put another Fragment on. But if you are using an arc weapon, it is very beneficial for this build. So if you're out of energy with everything, all your abilities, you can just get an arc weapon kill real quick and it will give you ion traces. For the artifact mods, this will be in Season of the Deep. So if you're not watching this in Season of the Deep, you don't have to worry about this and use whatever mods that apply to arc subclass for the later seasons. But for Season of the Deep, we're going to be using Shock and Awe, Lightning Strikes Twice, Authorized mods melee, authorized mods arc, and any champ weapons you really want to. You can also use Amped Up if you really want to say that to have your amplify for longer. Thunderous Retort, you gain more arc super damage when you're amplified or critically wounded. And then Electric Armor for 25% damage resistance while amplified. What Shock and Awe does is arc final blows when you're amplified, some a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. What Lightning Strikes Twice does is after throwing a grenade, you will gain an increased grenade recharge rate for a short amount of time. And when you get arc final blows, it will extend the duration of this benefit. For the gameplay loop of this build, you want to use your melee on a big group of targets. From that melee, you will gain a health regen from our aspect knockout. You also get more melee energy back from our melee kickstart. And from our exotic, you'll be jolting literally everything. When using your melee, you will get an orb of power from your melee kill, and more orbs from the arc melee kills from our spark of amplitude, to then fill up your armor charges for your next melee kickstart. You will get more grenade energy when hitting targets with your melee, and will also get ionic traces if your jolt kills targets around you from our spark of ions fragment. Again, this does have a cooldown, but it's very nice to have just for more ability energy. And again, you will get armor charges from these ionic traces that you produce, so you don't have to heavily rely on your orbs. When you throw your grenade will do more damage over time. With our aspect Touch of Thunder, it will also generate ionic traces if it's hitting enemies. This will be a huge chunk of your ability energy and will jolt targets as well, and this will also give you ionic traces from the jolt from our spark of ions again. Then use your class ability, which is our thruster. This will give you more melee energy back. If you use your class ability in your targets, you will gain more energy for all your abilities, and also you will get more super energy from Dynamo. Also, your thruster will pick up orbs around you, so this is another reason to not really look for the orbs 100% of the time. When you use all three abilities, it should give you your melee back, and you can recycle this loop again. Again, if you use your thruster in your targets and also your melee constantly, you'll be gaining a lot of super energy, and you'll have your super a lot of the time. When you pick up more orbs that you create, you'll get more melee energy back, and will also get 2 stacks of armor charge per orb pickup. These 2 stacks will also be the same with our ionic traces that we're going to be collecting. This will feed your melee kickstart for more melee energy when using it. And also, if you're out of abilities, like we said before, you get arc weapon kills for more ionic traces. One last time, if you're not using an arc weapon, make sure to take off Spark of Discharge and replace it with one of the other fragments we mentioned earlier. So in summary, use your melee first, then grenade, and then your class ability. You then should be able to loop it back to your melee after that. If you don't have your abilities, make sure to get some arc weapon kills and generate some ionic traces for Spark of Discharge. This will give you more energy for all your abilities. That's it for the build. If you guys enjoyed this build and want to see more from me, make sure to go check out my other build videos on my channel. If you really like the content, subscribe would be greatly appreciated. The dim loadout for this build will be in the video description. Also, I have some people asking for the shaders and the armor that I'm using with these builds from my TikTok comments and also my YouTube comments. So here's the transmog for this build. I really hope you guys enjoyed this build and video, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.